I'm just looking for a little bit of magic. It seems that love for me is always tragic. Always searching for some silk instead of fabric. Gonna turn out all the static. Be my little bit of magic. Yeah, 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 yeah,
Hey everyone, I'm Mackayla. Welcome to the Soundtrack of Our Lives podcast. We're going to jump right in with the two hardest questions. Who are you and what have you been up to recently?
Hey, thanks for having me. My name's DK Lyons, and recently I have been in a whirlwind of a release schedule. Kicked things off back in April, releasing the first single off my new project, and since then dropped another single, a number of videos, and then eventually my new EP in August. Yeah, it's just been a crazy year of playing shows and making content and trying out different things just to continue to grow what I'm doing as an artist. Yeah, it's continuing on now through the end of the year.
Very busy.
Absolutely. I mean, it's part of the deal. I feel like as if you're an independent artist these days, you're not just an artist. You're your own marketing team, your own show booker, your own making merch, making
Mhm.
posters, all that kind of stuff. It just all comes with the territory these days.
Yeah, there's a lot more than you would think.
100%, yeah. And then at the end of the day, the music still has to be good too, right? So
Yes. So it's like three careers in one.
absolutely. I feel blessed because I work in marketing by day and I also, work in video production by day. So like I know how to do a lot of what I'm doing already. It really impresses me when, there are artists out there that are grinding and don't even necessarily have the background and are expected to be making all this content and figuring out social strategy and all this stuff. There's just yeah, there's a lot of respect for everyone else that's out there also kind of just grinding.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
Absolutely, it is, but ultimately worth it, I think.
Yes. As long as it's worth it, then it's good. Then you should keep doing it.
Exactly, exactly.
I feel like if it stops feeling like it's worth it, then yeah.
Yeah, and it's not always going to be there's going to be ups and downs, right, with anything. And there's times where I really love making video content for my music and I love coming up with fun concepts. And then there's other times where, you know, uh it's Thursday night and I've just worked all day and I have to spend another 4 hours editing that night, like when I would rather just be kind of like, relaxing. But for me, it all comes back down to the songwriting and making music. And I think as long as I have windows of time, even when I'm, producing a project or in a pretty intense release schedule, as long as I can find little bits of time here and there to kind of just like make a new song or just pick up the guitar and play something just for the fun of it, those kind of moments help balance out, uh, the intensity of everything else.
Hmm. What does songwriting look like for you?
It's the most magical thing for me, honestly. Like I ever since I was a little kid, I wake up in the morning thinking about songwriting. I think about it all day, no matter what I'm doing, and I go to bed at night thinking about it. And uh if I, as I'm talking about it, it's kind of cruel that I don't get to spend more time on it than I do. But um for me, it's just always been emotional release. It's been exploration of different sounds. It's been really expanding my love and knowledge of the English language, and trying to just push myself to not, you know, say the same things that other people are already saying,
Hmm.
really about my own kind of voice and the stories that are, personal to me, but also that are unique and that are like worth telling. So, I love songwriting from a very like gut, it's in my soul type thing, but I also really love it from the craft standpoint. And like, I always respect artists that can make music where you can come back to it and listen to a song for the 100th time in your life and find something new in it or something you hadn't thought of before, or have it resonate because you're in a different period in your life than the first time you heard it. So I think about a lot of that stuff, a lot as I'm making music.
Does thinking about all of that influence how you create the music?
A little bit, but I think I'm also wary of not over try not to overthink. I am a chronic overthinker, and I think saying the word think a lot. There's also an element of just like instinct, like if I come up with something that may be a little bit out of left field or something that actually feels a little safe, like there's a lot of times where I just kind of have to like put my brain aside and trust that, you know, the right thing was coming out of me and I was channeling something at the right time where, you know, there's that saying about like, your first instinct is usually the right one, or
Hmm.
the first thought of a multiple choice question on a test is usually the right one. So it's trying to balance that out.
What advice would you give to somebody who's struggling with that balance?
Breathe. I think something I have to tell myself all the time. I feel like, especially in our world right now, where technology has made everything so accessible and has opened up so much, it's also very draining where like you have access to infinite content and information and connection at all times. And like
Hmm.
we weren't necessarily built for that. Um, and so, like, no matter what you're trying to do, whether it's making a song or, trying to solve some complicated like math problem or anything like that, it's so easy to just continue to push and to add on and to dig into every corner of the internet to try and solve your problem. And I think the biggest way to burn yourself out is by not knowing when to like take a deep breath,
Hmm.
go outside, touch grass, like all the cliche stuff you hear about, like it's true.
It's cliche because it works.
Exactly. No, exactly. Cliches exist for a reason. Like they
Hmm.
didn't, you can't just, something that isn't a commonality among humans can't just become a cliche. Like there is a lot of truth to it, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah, as you said, they exist for a reason. Like it's important to listen to them while also realizing at the same time that they are cliches.
Exactly. Yeah. It's all about balance.
Yeah. Speaking of balance, how do you balance life, work, music?
Not well sometimes, if I'm being honest with you. Uh, yeah, it's just trying to really map out days as best I can. Obviously, things throw wrenches in that a good amount. And for me, it's challenging sometimes because I have to travel a good amount for work. And there's just like certain other things that kind of get in the way, that are just like inherent to me, and my life and things like that. But in general, like I really try to be dedicated to like certain windows of time. Like the morning is my time for like working on myself and like working out or doing like yoga or like things that are like for my body. During the day is dedicated to making sure I can pay my bills and and all that good stuff. And then nighttime is usually when I block out time for like the music stuff. And when I'm really in a good rhythm, there's like certain nights of the week that I do certain things. Like, for instance, like Monday night will be batch editing content or filming content or just like getting that stuff ready and scheduling it and all that stuff. And then Tuesday might be more like, broader, like getting on social media and like interacting with other people and answering, DMs and comments and things like that. And then, maybe Wednesday's like my creative night where I go in and I start thinking about, um, what I'm working on next and just like, keep myself tapped into, like we talked about earlier, like the making the music's the best
Hmm.
part, and getting enough of that in my life is really important to me.
Yeah, that sounds like you've kind of got it down to a schedule.
In theory, yeah, but in practice, it's always harder. But as much as I can like keep to that schedule, the better I feel about it.
How often are you able to keep to that schedule?
Lately, not as much. It's been a little tough, but I'm kind of in this period now where like the project's out, and I did a lot of work to kind of build up to it and lead to it. Like, I was making the EP all last winter and was sticking to the schedule because I needed to produce 7 songs and
Hmm.
figure out, all that goes into that from arrangement to mixing to eventually mastering it myself and all of that. And at the same time, I was building out like the entire marketing plan, if you will, for everything and concepting the music videos and the content that would go in between the music videos and thinking about the aesthetic and the photo shoot and, reworking what my logo was going to be for the first time and all of that stuff. So I really was in a rhythm, I'd say like the first half of this year, and that just kind of like set me up really well.
Hmm.
Or now there's, there's just been a lot of things going on in my life, like because I did all that work beforehand, I'm not like losing ground, or at least the way I perceive it, because of like that foundation that was
Yeah.
built. And after some upcoming travel, hoping to get back into a good rhythm again and get back to that schedule, but we'll see.
Yeah, I feel like as soon as everything, starts going, perfectly, something comes along and messes it all up.
Yep, that's exactly it. And I feel like, it's so easy to dwell on that. Like even this week, like this is my first time in a while. I've had like a full week here in New York where I could have set my schedule. And then Monday night I started feeling sick. And like I got like a sinus infection this week. And thankfully I haven't been feeling too terrible, but like even things like that, like will throw off a schedule. And
Hmm.
so it's just kind of being okay with knowing like, yep, you're gonna get sick, you're gonna have things pop up. Um, but I feel like as long as my intention is to have a good schedule and stick to it as much as I can, like, I'm not going to be overly hard on myself because I didn't nail every element of that
Hmm.
this week. It's just not fair because life happens.
Yeah, I think it's probably impossible to perfectly stick to a schedule.
Yeah, unless you are very lucky with what your career and all that kind of stuff is, or if like, I've talked to people that have come from like a military background and they
Hmm.
like that's ingrained in them from day one. And like I respect that so much. And part of me wishes I could be like that. It's just not who I am. And so yeah, I think it's just figuring out like the best way that you can live your life and what you need to make sure that you're not sacrificing like one part of your life because you're trying to be so overly like rigid with another part of your life.
Hmm.
So that's the thing that I've constantly like been trying to like learn and appreciate with like myself and how I am.
Yeah, I feel like even if you find, the perfect balance, you're always going to feel like that it could be better.
Yeah, yeah, I know. And I think I agree with that. And I think it's what keeps you motivated to like keep chasing after that. Like going back to cliches, like it's not the destination, it's the journey. And like, yeah, that is one of the worst cliches, but it's like
Hmm.
all very true, right? Like, success isn't necessarily a destination. Like achievement isn't a destination. I a few years ago like really wanted to like reframe my mind and be like, I'm gonna love every step of this process as much as I can. It doesn't mean it's not gonna like be frustrating at times, like sitting there for 3 hours, like trying to EQ a bass guitar sound, or like
Hmm.
things like that aren't inherently fun, but finding like the joy in that kind of stuff, knowing that it's like it's just a part of the larger process. I think it makes everything in the moment a lot more enjoyable, but it also then makes like once you finally do finish something, there isn't this like huge expectation or buildup of like, well, this is going to be the crowning achievement of my life, and now everything's going to be easy from here on
Hmm.
out. Like it always continues on, and there's always going to be the next thing that you take on. And I think that's kind of how I've gotten through it over the last few years, is just like trying to appreciate and enjoy all the all the little micro moments that build up to whatever you think the big moment is.
Hmm. That's a really good mindset to have. I feel like I need to have a mindset more like that.
I mean, so do I. Like it's all about obviously too, like practicing what you preach, and I could say
Hmm.
that in the face, and then there's obviously times where like I don't do it, and I want to do it. So, I think it's me telling myself as much as I am, telling you right now that that's how I want to live my life.
Yeah, something you're probably always going to have to work on.
Exactly. Yep.
It's just so easy to get like frustrated or bogged down with whatever's going on around you.
It really is, and I think that's the other part of it too, right? Is like that's so inherently human. Like you can't get down on yourself for getting down on yourself. Like if you try to pretend like everything is great all the time and you're bottling things up that are frustrating or like disappointing or all those kind of things, like that's never going to end well either. So, you know, just yeah, I try to be as just aware of everything going on as possible. Like when I'm feeling really good, like I'm like, okay, cool, like I know I'm feeling good, and I want to really enjoy this and figure out like what's causing this and how can I like try to make that as sustainable as possible. But then when I'm not feeling good or I'm feeling frustrated, it's like, okay, like you're allowed to feel this. Let's figure out why. Let's, figure out what you need to do to get through it. And then let's also figure out how to like avoid this as much as possible going forward. Um, but also know that it's okay that you're probably going to feel this exact same way again soon.
Hmm. Yeah, that's the annoying thing about life.
It is, and it's a long life. Like, thinking about another 5 decades of this is like it's kind of daunting at times, but
Yes. I mean, so I work at a senior living facility. I do activities. Like we have a resident there who's 104.
Yeah,
Like 80 more years? How?
it's
Like
daunting. It's daunting, I know. And then you think about too, it's like, well, 104, like how many of the last, like you hope that like the last 30 years of that is like you're still sharp and able to do a lot of stuff, but you know, there's so much of it that it's why you just have to like really embrace youth while you have it, I feel like, because
mhm,
like, you're not going to be able to sustain the levels of you could, but you like it just it gets harder and harder, right, to like sustain the levels of energy and like enthusiasm um and like, just vigor for things, I guess, as you get older. So, something I'm reconciling with all the time.
yeah, it definitely changes over time, and your body just can't. It just isn't the same.
Exactly. Um, yeah, and I think that's why like, I'm learning recently, like taking care of yourself from a really young age is important. Because even little things like I realized recently that I've had terrible like sitting posture for like my working setup for 4 years, 5 years, and then I've been like, working remotely, and it like has come back to bite me. So I'm telling everyone I know now, like, get your ergonomics set up, like you will not regret
Hmm.
it.
I feel like that's something they need to teach in school. It's like all of these things about how to take care of yourself when you're an adult.
Yep, I would agree with that. I feel like it's definitely it's stuff that where you're just kind of expected to figure out, and like maybe word of mouth, maybe if you're curious enough, like the internet. But yeah, in general, there's like so many things that like, I left school having taken and I love my college experience, and I don't regret any of it, but I took some classes. I'm like, yeah, this time probably could have been maybe a little bit better served, like learning how like, how to get rid of mold in a New York apartment, because that's just like what happens in here, right? Like
Hmm.
things like that. So, yeah, I totally agree.
Like a life skills course.
Yeah, 100%. Just like an hour a week, you learn so much, I feel like, just from that.
And I feel like it would be interesting too.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah. There's like so many things I bet like we like see in front of us every day that like we have no idea how it actually works, but it'd be kind of cool to like know that.
Hmm. Yeah, like even the simple things. And then as soon as you learn how it works, you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. And then you probably have a little bit more of an appreciation for it too. Like, yeah, that's amazing that like my sink just works. Like,
Right.
things like that.
Yeah, it is so interesting. And then people who go into those professions have such like a crazy understanding of it.
I mean, that's why AI will never wipe out like the plumber or the electrician.
Hmm.
Like, I'm not touching any of that stuff. Like,
God, no.
you know, um, they're always going to be needed, and they're always going to be essential, which is kind of great. Like, I love that there are things like that out there for people that, you know, will always be key skills and all that.
Yeah, and I feel like there's skills that we should all know more than we do.
100%.
Like I feel like I should understand more about like the electricity in my own house, you know?
Yep. Yep. I agree. It's so easy because there is someone out there that you can easily just like put a request in. They'll show up in a couple hours and be taken care of. Like, I
Hmm.
love this, but yeah, I agree. I wish I knew a lot more so I didn't have to do that.
But it's one of those things.
Yep. 100%.
I feel like also depending on where you grow up, you have that luxury of not having to learn it.
Hmm. Yep. Like, I don't know about your experience, but like growing up in Massachusetts on the Cape, I lived in like a normal sized house, but it was a fairly new house. So like it had a lot of, new appliances and new things to it. And then moving to New York City, where I live in a building that's like, you know, 100 something years old, and it's got, a radiator that for sure was put in like the 40s. And I literally just had my stove oven taken out, and I found out, like, looking at the label, like it was installed in like the 50s. And like,
Hmm.
there's just so many things that like I never was exposed to um in my upbringing. And like, I don't know if for you if it's the same.
Yeah,
Like,
no, it's the same. Yeah.
yeah, I know. But it's like, if you're not exposed to it, it's hard to know that you don't know something, right?
Yes, that is, yeah, that is the hard thing too, because you don't know it until that situation happens. So it's like, how can you know what you need to learn?
Right, exactly.
But I guess anyway, back to the to the EP. What did it feel like once you finally put it out after sitting on it for so long?
It felt like a relief in a lot of ways. And I think most artists will tell you this. Like, I wrote it like 18 months before it came out. So like I had changed a lot in that time span, and I don't regret anything about it. But, you know, um, I was really excited for people to hear it. I think it's like, for me, it was a huge stepping stone in terms of it's the first thing I almost entirely self-produced. And so I like was learning a lot about the nitty-gritty of production going into it. And it was just like a really long, like arduous experience for me that felt like a win to get it out. But I was also, excited to like figure out what was going to happen next and what I was going to work on next. So it was kind of trying to balance that out and not getting too ahead of myself and appreciating that moment. And we had an amazing release show that kind of allowed us to celebrate it a little bit. And we did something really different with my band, where we normally play like the big electric, like loud pop rock fun
Hmm.
show, where we're trying to get as much energy as possible and as much like dancing and emotional catharsis in that way. And this time we kind of did like a strip back, like classic, like old school MTV unplugged vibe on a
Ooh.
rooftop. So just like reworking a lot of my old songs and playing the new songs in this like really kind of strip back environment. And it was really like intimate and emotional in different ways. And I think it really embodied like the feeling of the EP in general, in a really nice way that, we definitely could have done with a bigger show, but doing that more intimate vibe was kind of a really nice, like, here it is moment, in the way that, you know, um, it could be interpreted.
Hmm. Is it hard to be the producer of your own music?
Yeah. I got to still work with like this guy Bruce Lowe, who actually produced Stevie Wonder back in the day and like worked on the Lion King soundtrack. And I got randomly connected with him, and he was like a really great mentor, and helped me out with two of the songs and really unlocked some stuff in the lead single Love Seeking. And then, my band, my backup singer Sophie sang backup on six of the seven songs, and Eddie, my bass player, is also a producer, so he was kind of like helping out with some ideas here and there and helped track all the backing vocals. And then Matt, my drummer, played drums on two of the songs and really brought his own style to those. And then Pat, my keyboard player, is just like a production savant and added a lot of really good like input. So I was still getting a lot of outside input, but
Hmm.
a lot of it was kind of me just like for a long time in my own like echo chamber and trying to
Right.
be, balancing out, not doing too much and not overproducing, but also making sure that like I wasn't just, you know, showing up, doing what I was comfortable doing, and then like moving on with it. So it was like a really interesting journey of trying to like navigate all of that.
Yeah, that sounds like it was probably, both fun and hard.
Exactly, exactly. And it's fun when you get over the hump and you finally feel like you've gotten somewhere. Like there'd be
Hmm.
times where like, I'd spend 5 or 6 hours on a Saturday mixing one song and thinking that I got it to a good spot, and your ears get so used to it after a while. And I'd output it, and I like I still have Apple Music because I like being able to upload demos and listen to them like on my headphones when I go out in public. And like the next day I would listen to it and be like, well, this sounds terrible. Like and then I just take like 100 notes of things I needed to adjust. Um, but what you realize though is that like over the span of a few months of working on a song, like those notes get less and less each time. And then suddenly it's just like one or two minor tweaks. And once I'm at that point, I'm like, okay, like all this hard work is culminated in something that I feel, excuse me, like confident in.
Hmm. How long does that process usually take?
Well, this time around, a lot longer, just 'cause I was learning how to do a lot on my own and doing a lot of experimentation. But like, you know, a couple of the songs I for sure put in like over 100 hours over the span of like from the writing and making the demo and then reworking things and then properly recording and then doing all of the everything that comes with mixing and comping and all of that and then the mastering. But then there were a couple that like, maybe a third of that just because certain things come quicker or um, something might require less that's more simple. Like the first song off the EP is really just like effectively like three guitars, drums, and bass, and then vocals. And so it was challenging in its own ways because it's
Hmm.
less you like everything stands out more. But in terms of like how that one came together is definitely like an easier process. So I think it depends on the song and like what it requires.
Hopefully, the next time out will be even faster.
That's the hope. Like, going through all of that to understand I took a really long route in some cases to get somewhere where it's like, oh, I know the shortcut now and I can get there a lot quicker. So
Yeah,
that's
but you had to learn the long way to learn the shortcut,
exactly.
which is frustrating that it has to go that way, but it has to.
Yeah, no, exactly. And like it's a good learning experience for me because I'm number one, very impatient. Like I've always struggled with that. I'm trying to get better about it. And number two, like I love songwriting and all that so much that like once I get the song out, I kind of just want to like snap my fingers and have like it be done. And
Hmm.
it's oh like you have to work you really have to work for it now to
Yeah.
like it's like this is a an analogy I'm making up on the spot, but it's like you strike gold or something like that, and you can see that there's gold like in this giant rock or
Hmm.
like a diamond or something, and then you're like, okay, like I know I have something here, and this is great, but then you have to spend a lot of time like properly unearthing it and digging at the actual root to get to that final thing that that like you want to get to.
Hmm.
So um yeah, I think like it's all learning and it's all just building muscle. It's
Yeah.
like going back to it now as I've started to work on other stuff. It's like, oh yeah, like I'm getting to this point three times faster than I did last time because I went through all of that, you know, banging my head against the wall and doing things the wrong way the first two times to then figure out I had to do it a different way.
Hmm. It's just all learning experience.
Well, going back to it, that is life in general.
Hmm.
Like learning until the day you die. And it's the harsh reality.
Yeah, it's never easy.
Oh, never is.
So before I ask the last question, was there anything else you wanted to mention or talk about today?
No, I mean, this has been a lovely conversation. Thank you for having me. And yeah, I hope we get to do it again. And I hope the next time I talk to you, I've learned even more and stuck even more to my process and have some more fun music to share with you.
That would be awesome. So our last question is, what is the soundtrack of your life?
This is a great question. I think going like I've listened to so much music in my life and I find a lot of connection in so many different types of music and genres. But I've kind of realized recently like there's a huge part of me that's like still so moved by some of the music that like I was listening to as a kid.
Hmm.
So like for instance, like Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers will always be the soundtrack to my life just because there's just I've loved the music since I was a little kid and he's the reason why I wanted to become a musician in the first place. And there's such a deep connection there between myself and my mom and also like my dad who passed away when I was 6. And so there's still like I still throw on like Full Moon Fever or Wildflowers or Into the Great Wide Open and like it just feels like me in a lot of ways. And then I've realized too there's even soundtracks that I remember from movies as a kid that still like just evoke emotion in me like nothing else. And it was funny like the other day was on a road trip and my girlfriend threw on the Tarzan soundtrack like from the animated movie that came out in the 90s and like there's certain songs on that like I was not even in a sad mood at all, but it just like started crying. And it was just like there's certain things I think that I'm very nostalgic for, and I think like that's just who I am as a person, and that's why those things soundtrack my life because I am very much like always trying to maintain that like childhood like innocence and sense
Hmm.
of wonder, and that just like before you knew like what like love was, you kind of felt it already, and that's like kind of like what those songs do for me, and they still kind of are the soundtrack to my life.
That's awesome. So, for all of our listeners who want to stay updated on you, hear your music, watch your videos, where can they find you?
I'm at DK Lyons Music on YouTube. I think that's where I tend to send most people because I have a lot of fun music videos to go along with the music. But then just DK Lyons across Spotify, Apple Music, all the different streaming platforms, and then DK Lyons 714 on Instagram.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today.
Of course, thank you. This is awesome.
Awesome. Have a nice rest of your day.
I'm just looking for a little bit of magic. It seems that love for me is always tragic. Always searching